A warm welcome to the Shoegazing podcast with me, Jesper Ingvaldsson of shoegazing.com, one of the leading blogs in the world on quality shoes. This time it's all about shoe repairs and cobblers. I met up with Carina Eneroth of Skomakeri Framåt, which sort of translates to Cobblery Forward, a cobbler and bespoke shoemaker based in Stockholm, Sweden. She's been in the business for almost 4 decades now, and apart from being one of the owners of Skomakeri Framåt, with a Royal Warrant of Appointment to the Swedish Royal family, she's also on the board for the Swedish Cobblers Association. With the mature shoe repair industry in Sweden as a base, but with lots of international lookouts, we talked some about the history of the cobbler trade and a lot about the current situation with both how Corona has affected the industry, but also how things were before and likely will be in the future. An interesting talk for all who want to know more about cobblers' situation today. All right, Carina Eneroth of Skomakeri Framåt, welcome to the Shoegazing podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesper.
Yeah, we're in this amazing place in the old town of Stockholm. It's very, very narrow alley, and here you have your shoe repair and shoemaking workshop. How old is this building?
The building is since 1680.
Yeah.
And the workshop was registered as a workshop on an old map, 1749.
Okay.
That's the oldest piece of paper we have saying that this room has been a workshop. It didn't say shoemaker's workshop.
Okay, but
so
a workshop.
A workshop. It was not an apartment. Half the shop area today were an apartment, and the rest was a workshop. And the company Skomakeri Framåt have been here since 1960.
Yeah.
But as we know now, the first shoemaker moved in 1920.
Okay.
So we had planned to have a 100-year anniversary this year. But we will do that as soon as we can invite all our old customers and friends to a big party.
Yeah, because Corona has made things different.
Yeah. But as soon as we know that everything is 100% safe and the weather is good, because we need to be outside.
Yeah, not too many people can fit in here. Yeah.
No, not so many. Not so many as we think will come, because we hope that a lot of our friends and customers will join us when we have our anniversary.
Yeah, cool. So, when did you start working with shoes?
After high school, I started working as a tailor.
Yeah.
And trained as a tailor and worked as a tailor for a few years. And then I just slided in a shoe repair shop. And I started as a trainee there. And for 10 years, I worked with shoe repair. And I trained with an old-fashioned shoemaker. So even if we were just making shoe repair in that workshop, we had to start with making our own shoes. Okay. Because he said that if you don't know how a shoe is built, you will never be able to repair it in a proper way. So I started working together with him and his son, and he was one of these old, quiet guys. So he never told me when I did something wrong until I was completely finished, and I had to start all over again. Okay. And since I was working together with his son, I always had to be a little bit better than him to even be recognized. So I learned the hard way. But it was fun. It was a nice environment. It was not rough in any way. Everyone was friendly. But I want to produce good in a good way. So I was never satisfied with me if I did something wrong. So after just a few weeks in the workshop, I got my own key and I could stay as long as I liked. And since I became a tailor first, I had a lot of fabric at home. So I started to redress all my shoes. Okay. I put them apart and I add another dress on my shoes. So I could wear shoes that matched my dresses.
All right.
And that's a service that we still have today. So for a wedding party or for the Nobel Prize dinner party, we often do shoe dressings. So people get here with a brand new silk from the leftovers from the silk dress that have been tailored, and we can make miracles with their shoes. So it looks like a pair of brand new handmade silk slippers, but we have just covered them with the material, the fabric, so they will match. We've done it a lot for the theaters as well. When they don't have the possibility or the time to let us produce handmade shoes, we can just cover up in a quite good way. And when we know how to take shoes apart, we also know how to put them together again. So for us, it's not a problem. Sometimes people try to do it themselves. We see it in sneakers now, that a lot of pieces of fabric or pieces of leather are attached with glue that starts to rub off after a few days. So we have started to do a little bit of those sneaker makeovers as well.
Yeah. And so you learned making shoes already from the beginning, but you worked as a shoe repair cobbler.
Yeah.
But when did you start working as a shoemaker as well?
When I came to this workshop, 1994, and I was supposed to do the repair work, and my old master and his father were still doing the handmade, the bespoke business. But after a while I realized it looks much more interesting and fun to work with clients making handmade shoes. So I was starting to try to find a school where I could do half-time education to learn how to become a shoemaker. And then I realized that there was none in Stockholm. And I didn't want to leave for London at that time because I had 2 small babies at home. So I just begged on my bare knees that my master in this workshop would take me as an apprentice. And since he knew that I had the 10 year of experience with a really old-fashioned guy, he was convinced that I would manage. So his father was a little bit skeptical. He was not 100% sure that a young girl could manage the hard work as a shoemaker, but I showed that if it's hard work if you don't learn the techniques.
Yeah.
If you just think it's you need muscle power, then you will have problems. Yeah. If you learn the techniques, if you learn to take care of your tools, and if you listen to the material while you're working, of course it's hard, but it's, as you can see now, there's a lot of female bespoke makers. So the old guy here, he was a little bit skeptic in the beginning, but he realized after a while that I was tough enough to do the job. So I could start as an apprentice, and we had to hire another guy to do the repair work. Yeah. And at that time, my master didn't get any funding to be my teacher. So he put actually in a lot of extra time and money to give me an education. Because I couldn't, I could survive on my half-time repair work that I had here. But then for half-time, I was learning from him, and he put in all that time, and he had to hire another guy to do the repair work that he didn't manage to do while he was teaching me. So I'm very, very grateful that these old guys actually put in their time and money to help me out.
And this is still that old school place where you actually do both shoe repairs and shoes, which is back in the days, that's basically what all cobbleries was. Yeah. Yes.
Every cobbler or everyone was actually a shoemaker, and then they produced shoes, often in the wintertime. And more cobbling in the summer when people wear out their shoes in another way. So this workshop in the 40s and the 50s on another location, but this company produced football shoes, sport shoes, and slippers, indoor slippers. Yeah. That was a production that could go on, that was not a bespoke production. So every summer they already had all the football shoes that they needed to sell during the summer. But in the early 60s, when the workshop moved to this location, they decided not to do any more production. The production lines closed because the import of Italian shoes started, and sneakers and sport shoes. So they decided that this is going to be a cobbler's shop. Yeah. Mr. Minnet has already established in Scandinavia, and this shop was supposed to be just quick and easy repairs. So we have one of the oldest quick heel signs that was outside this workshop. And it looked like a bar with a high counter where you could sit, wait while the shoes were fixed.
Yeah.
But all the old customers refused to stop ordering, so the production of bespoke shoes was going on, but in a much smaller scale.
Okay.
So that was going on. It was still happening here when I came here in 94.
Yeah.
That's why I was so interested and wanted to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. I don't think that too many people know that. Just 100 years ago, in the cities, there was shoemaker cobblers everywhere.
Yeah.
Even in small cities, you could have 50 cobblers who repaired shoes and made shoes for the local clientele, because that's where you got your shoes from.
Yes. I found a list from 1789 of all the companies that were registered in Stockholm at the time, and there was 49 shoemakers in Old Town.
Yeah, exactly.
On
and
this
it's a very
small
small
island.
Yeah.
And now it's us.
Yeah.
Even if we are 4 working together in this workshop, it was actually a shoemaker in every block.
Yeah.
Around every corner there was a shoemaker shop. And if we go really far back in the history, the first name of a street in Stockholm was named the Merchandise Street. The second named in text, in writing, is the Shoemaker Street.
Yeah.
So that's how important we are.
Yeah, because everyone needs shoes.
Yeah.
So how has the cobbler profession in Sweden developed since you started working as a cobbler?
There are fewer workshops, but I think that the level of skills is a little bit higher. We have tried in the Shoemakers organization to get together every year and have competitions for the repair shoemakers. So we should always try to do our best, and that we go together and meet together and we have an exhibition with all the suppliers, keep up the interest for the trade. So even if there are fewer of us now and a lot of the shoemakers are quite old, I still hope that a lot of the shoemakers now, they will take apprentices in so we can keep the high level of skill.
Because I think in general it feels like cobblers in Sweden seem to have a pretty good reputation. Would you say this is correct?
Yeah, I think so. When we've been out in the European organization that we had until a few years back, it seems like since we have this really old organization, we still have a backbone in the trade. So we try to keep that high level of skill and we don't want to change anything. I actually had to remodel my workshop when we got a new stitching machine because it's so ugly. I don't want the clients to see the modern ugly shoe repair machine. So the stitching machine, the old-fashioned beautiful black machine, is still in work, but not on a regular basis because it's starting to get a little bit too old. But for some seams, I can't use the new one because it's not good enough. But it's stronger and it does the daily job, but it doesn't look nice. So we hide it. So now instead of doing all the stitching work in public, we do it behind the scenes because the machine is ugly.
So what's the status for cobblers today in Sweden, Europe and the world, would you say?
Today, I think that with Corona, we have a completely new situation. It affects us very, very differently. My workshop that is located in an area where there's not so many citizens, much more offices and workplaces. We have lost a lot of our regular clients because they are home, working from home, not wearing out any shoes. But the shoemakers that are located in an area with a lot of people living in the blocks, they still have quite the same kind of work and amount of work. Maybe not so much business in selling new shoes because people keeping a little bit tight in their wallet and don't want to spend too much money, but there are still more people in the shop. And those shoemakers that have their workshops in this indoor malls, they don't have any clients at all. they could have lost everything, because people just go to the grocery store and they don't stroll around in a mall anymore, and some of the malls have actually been closed. So how we have been affected in very different ways, and I suppose that's the same in all Europe, in all the countries that have been affected by the virus. So I just cross my fingers and hope that the help that everyone's got from the government, that has been very different depending on how you're running your company and where you're located, how much money you could actually get. We just cross our fingers and hope that all of us could survive. We know already that some shoemakers that was close to retirement decided to close down their workshops because they didn't want to risk ending up in bankruptcy during these hard times. But how this will affect our businesses, we just have to wait and see. We were hoping that it would be much more prosperous, since we have to start to repair everything that we own. We can't throw away the sneakers just because there's a little hole in the toe tip. We have to repair everything, not just the high quality welted shoes. So we were hoping that it would be much more like a spring for the rest of this year, but now we're not so sure.
If you look before the corona, in general, people were more into repairing and thinking about the environment in that
absolutely.
regards. So, did you see that as cobblers, that more people came to you to fix their shoes instead of buying new stuff?
I should say there was a bigger interest, more questions, and more younger customers. And that's also because of the vintage trend.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people buy vintage and then they realize that they don't know how to use or how to take care of these vintage shoes. So they get to my workshop just with a question. Is this a good buy? Can I use this? Will they fall apart? And then when we start to talk and tell them everything that we can do, we often get a very pleased customer, because they realize that they still have a lot of stuff at home that they can go on using instead of throwing away. So since that is the mind of the society now, that we have to reuse again and again and again, and maybe remodel and reshape stuff, we saw an increased flow of a little bit younger customers, and also that they were dragged here by their grandparents. This is where you should go when your shoes are falling apart. So this workshop has such a long reputation and has been here for so long. So I can't say that we have had any big dips until Corona. So I should say that the interest for repairing is high today.
And if you compare between countries and continents, what can you say there for the situation for cobblers looking before Corona, so to speak?
In a lot of countries, the cobbler have, I should say, a very low status, and a lot of people here in Sweden too have said that those that just do the quick work are not skilled. So for me, I would love all the shoemakers to have a really, really high level of skills, because that will give more work for all of us. So 15 years back, we arranged in this shoemakers organization a European Union project. We got money to educate 100 shoemakers. So we arranged classes and a lot of education and got together for weekends to train in everything that we saw could have been a lack of knowledge. So that was a big step for us to put so much time and effort into actually educate most of the shoemakers that was in the organization at the time.
I know that among independent bespoke shoemakers internationally, there's a relatively good community where you collaborate and share experiences with each other. You host conferences, etc. Do you find this for cobblers as well?
In Sweden, we have the shoemakers organization that try.
But internationally,
but we try to invite the other Nordic countries, especially, and we have the shoemakers coming from other places in Europe as well to come to our conference. Since we have this small exhibition with all the suppliers as well, even if we don't do a lot of lectures in English, so we can't attract a lot of cobblers to come to listen to the speaks that we do on our conference. But otherwise, every third year we have the big exhibition in Wiesbaden with all the producer of machinery, and they also do a lot of classes, but almost everything is in German. We tried in the European Union organization for shoemakers, we always try to get the German shoemakers group to do more of the talks in English. So that's in progress. But a lot of the talks are also so visual. So you could follow even if you don't understand every word that is said. Because when you know shoemaking, it's the same in every language. It's like a sign language. So we could follow those talks, and often there are video presentations. And so every third year we try to visit the exhibition in Wiesbaden.
So that's the main arena for meeting other in Europe then?
Yeah, and like in Holland and in Belgium, there are also national meetings that we often get invited to. Then we just have the problem that is always, or often is in the spring. So it could be that the same week we all of a sudden realize that everyone arranged the meeting the same weekend or in the same month, and it could be hard for us to actually arrange a meeting and go to another meeting. So when we arrange the Swedish meeting, we try not to go the same year as Wiesbaden, so that our members could afford to go both to Wiesbaden and the next year to our exhibition.
And if you look into the crystal ball, how do you think the cobbler industry and the shoe repair industry will develop in the future, especially looking at it internationally?
I wish I had a crystal ball, or the old shoemaker's lamp that was a ball filled with water. That's the one that I really like to have, even if that wouldn't help in this case. I just hope that after this corona problem, the pandemic problem, we will have an increased interest in starting to take care of the environment, and in that case we get down to everything that we actually have in our possession now, and
also buy things of good quality.
The fashion industry will have to start to work in a completely different way with long-lasting products that you could reshape your jacket, and you should be able to work with the material much longer than just for a season. So I just look into the shoemakers globe and hope that our clients and the customers will be interested in what we're doing. And I think that's what's going to happen, because that's what we saw before the pandemic. People are asking more about what material we're using. Is the glue going to affect me if you add glue with chemicals? And so the interest is there.
People are more aware of things. And I know that especially in some markets like Japan and some areas in the US, we see more specialized cobblers, some that only work with welted shoes or only work with boots, full refurbishments or remakes and stuff like that, more specialized. Is this something you think will be more common in the future?
I should say it depends so about where you're located and what's on the market where you're located. Because we saw this 25 years ago in the shoemakers business, that we didn't do any welted leather soles anymore, and realized at the time that of course we can't get those repairs in because those shoes are not sold. The shoes are not on the market, so there is no client getting new welted shoes in Stockholm. And when the colleagues then started to import English shoes, all of a sudden there was of course, much more resold leather shoes. So depending on the market, depending on what you as a client are buying, of course, we could change our line into more just making welted repair if that's what you demand us to do. But as long as we still have the rest of the shoes on the market, in this workshop, I don't think we will specialize. There are 4 of us working here. We have a little bit of special skills. So for me, I work not so much with repair work, much more with foot care and foot health. So I take care of those with severe orthopedic problems. And that gives me another line to work in, and that's not just the shoes, because the shoes is just one issue when we have severe foot problems. So we are a little bit specialized, but as I say, I think it depends a lot of what's going to be on the market. If it's going to be in fashion to have very heavy work boots that we could see in the hipster areas, of course there is a market for a shoemaker that just specialized in taking care of those boots.
Yeah, and if it's a bigger city with more of those hipsters, then there's
of course
larger chances of this. Yeah.
And since they know exactly what they want, they can accept to travel a little bit to get the right repair work done for their shoes, instead of just going to the local small service spot in the block if they don't have the material or the machinery or the skill. So I should say it depends so much about the fashion and much about where you are located. If it's going to be possible to have special skilled craftsmen, if the customers isn't there, we don't have anyone to serve.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting that you mentioned this, how 25 years ago the Swedish Cobblers Association worked with an importer who brought in English welted shoes, and you started selling them yourselves in your shoe repair workshops. So it became sort of mixed shoe stores and cobbleries. And that has been sort of the foundation for the whole interest in Sweden. We were quite early into this new wave of interest in welted shoes because of this, so to speak.
Yeah, it was during one of our meetings that this was up for discussion. Because when we have our meeting, of course, it's very official and a strict meeting. We have things that we have to decide together. And then afterwards there is like, we get together and chat, and then there's always, but how's your business going? And people were complaining about there was, just 10 years back we did so much resold leather soles, and now it's just sneakers and plastic and synthetic material, and it's boring for us to work with. When we're skilled, we want to use our skills. And then this cobbler listened and realized this is something I could do business in this line. So he started to import the shoes, and instead of trying to set up new shops, it was a bright idea to just contact all the cobblers, because to buy a pair of welted shoes from someone that you actually can go back to when there is some problems with the shoes,
and know the product,
you really trust the shop that you are buying from, gave welted shoes a kickstart, and made a lot of these shoemakers, gave them a really good way to stay in business. So we are very thankful for that we got this kickstart, and that also made you with shoegazing being in business now. If we hadn't had them, we probably would have seen less shoemakers today.
Yeah, I mean, Sweden is a country that many look at for this, high quality shoes. There's a big interest, it's a big market, relatively speaking, for being a small country. And I think this is sort of laid a foundation for this, with the early imports of welted shoes sold at the cobblers.
Yeah, that was they were smart guys.
Yeah, and I think
we're very thankful.
It says a lot that you can do things yourself for the market. You don't only have to stick your finger up in there and feel where the market is going. You can actually do things yourself and influence the market.
Absolutely. So the things that we have added in this business is, as I said, more interest in feet and the problems that we see that feet actually get from the shoes. I've been working with orthopedic problems for almost 30 years, and I could see that people don't get healthier. Their feet doesn't get healthier. Even if they get orthotics and orthopedic shoes, the problems are still there. And when I ask the clients, when are your feet really good? When do you feel relaxed? When does it not hurt? When I'm barefooted. So then I see it's not a foot problem. We have a shoe problem. And all the shoes that compress the toes are a problem for our health. It causes fallen arches, knee and hip problems. And that's why I more and more work with exercises for your feet, good tools to get the foot exercise into your daily routines, so you can manage the sufferness that you get from regular shoes.
What about neighboring services like shoe shine services, patina and stuff like that? Do you think this will be more common for cobblers to work with as well?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of polishing, not out on the street, but people drop their shoes off just for polishing because they don't want to have all the stuff at home. But and some of the interest is because we do shoe polishing classes. So you can come here, a group of 4 or 5 people together, and we do 2 or 3 hours of shoe polishing. And that increased the interest, and that get people to understand, this isn't so hard. Or they say, oh, this is too much work, I will just drop off my shoes on a regular basis. And we have got questions from clients, couldn't you just make me a small card, I can pay for it, and then I can polish my shoes for 10 times. So we had that back in maybe 15 years back. So that's something that I'm going to do again. Yeah. So like instead of having your gym card, you can have your shoe polishing card.
Yeah. And that's something you do a lot of. You mentioned the classes. You do polishing classes. You do different sort of cobblers or shoemaking classes regularly.
Yeah, we try to keep the business, the workshop open as much as possible. So I could be booked for a lot of different events. We do like shoe fittings. When you get here with all your shoes that doesn't fit you, because most people have at least 10 pair of shoes that they have in their closet and they love them because they look good, but they can't walk in them.
Cool. I also have to talk to you on this topic, because one thing I hear a lot from my readers regularly is them being afraid to use cobblers for repairs or resoles, since many factories don't accept shoes back for factory refurbishments or resoles if a third party have worked on them. What's your view on this?
It so depends on the shoemaker. You should also ask for the shoemaker's skills. If you're here in Sweden, just ask if we have a master degree, if we have done our training in a proper way. And if you don't want to send your shoes away, try to find a good shoemaker and then you just have to go on repair the shoes with that shoemaker. And otherwise you decide that I'm going to use the service that the business, the company that I bought the shoes from could provide me. But then you have to know that you have to be out of your shoes for a much longer time. So that must be a decision from every client. But a lot of the good shoe repair shops can do exactly the same line of work. Yeah,
and I usually say that the best thing for the shoes and for the customers in a way is to have a combination of both, since when you do half sole at the cobbler, it's you don't affect the shoe as much, but usually when you send the shoes back, they exchange everything, and then they might see if they put on a new welt, and they will stitch in the welt, and they will you limit the amount of actual resoles you can do. But do you see any solution in this? Some sort of approved cobblers or whatever that all
could
factories
be.
can accept
And
work from or something?
I'm not 100% sure how it works for those cobblers that also sell different brands.
Yeah, exactly.
If they could have a deal with the factory that we can do this the same way, we can get the original material. Some clients always want to have the original material, and then we just check, they work with the same leather that we do, so you get exactly the same quality of material. And I should say, for us, if we do a completely new sole on a pair of shoes, we can't damage it in any way. It's not, and if we add on just a thin rubber sole, because some people don't like wearing leather soles because it's too slippery, it doesn't change the shoe in any way. There is no way the shoe is going to be badly affected from a rubber sole. So that's just like a way for the factory to say we don't accept we can't take back anything that have been repaired in another shop. But I can't see why, actually. If there is something that shows up that the inseaming seam is broken after half a year, that could not have been affected by a new rubber heel in any way. But I know that the factories have this policy, which I think sometimes is strange. But as I said, it must be up to every customer to decide. If you are in a location where you don't have a shoemaker that you trust, use the service that the factory provide. Otherwise, trust your shoemaker.
Yes. All right, Carina Eneroth of Skomakeri Framåt. Thank you very much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Shoegazing Podcast. For much more on classic shoes, visit shoegazing.com. And to those of you who want to support shoegazing, become a patron and contribute with anything from $3 a month. See patreon.com/shoegazingblog for more info on this. Thanks a lot in advance. The Shoegazing Podcast will be back with a new episode in a short while, so hear you again soon.